Welcome back, everyone. I'm Archbishop William Scoggins, and I again want to share with you another recent teaching by Lord Rael's Imperial Regent, Angelus Domini. Was Paul saint or heretic? All will be judged, and only then can it truly be said whether Paul was working for good or evil. But what cannot be disputed is his teachings have led many away from the teachings of Christ, and possibly caused many Christians to end up in hell. Some would go even further and call him Antichrist, because his teachings are so opposed to what Christ taught, while others would call him false prophet, because his false teachings led to the establishment of the Roman Catholic Church and all of the Pauline doctrine Christian churches that are teaching apostate lies. I'm not suggesting that there is no truth in some of what Paul says. I'm only suggesting that Paul has replaced very important truths given by Christ with his own personal philosophy and context. A good example is Romans chapter 10, verse 13, where he leads everyone to believe that simply calling upon the Lord will grant salvation. But when you read the actual scriptures he's quoting from Joel chapter 2, verse 32, and Acts chapter 2, verse 21, it becomes clear that this is specifically referencing the end times and the people of Jerusalem who are gathered to the Lord at Mount Zion. Without that context, Paul has led billions of Christians into believing a false, simple salvation scenario. In Romans chapter 10, verse 5, Moses is quoted by Paul based on the scriptures of Leviticus 18, verse 5, and Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 11, where God specifically tells that adherence to the law, God's statutes, judgments, and ordinances, is the way to life. Nowhere in those scriptures does God say that the path to life is by faith. That is something Paul just adds in, which is heresy, and has completely misled billions of people into thinking they do not need to obey God's laws. In Romans chapter 10, verse 10 and 11, Paul says, "For with your heart you believe and are justified, and with your mouth you confess and are saved." It is just as Scripture says. Everyone who believes in him will not be put to shame. Psalms chapter 25, verse 3, and Isaiah chapter 49, verse 23 are the scriptures Paul is referring to there. But what he does is very deceptive, because he's equating not be put to shame with being saved. But the verses in Psalms and Isaiah make no such inference. They only suggest that a believer will not be shamed by their belief. A huge difference, and again, the cause of billions of people going astray. But perhaps the most important and glaring proof that Paul was a heretic can be found in his teachings in Romans chapter 7, verse 6, Romans chapter 8, verse 2, Romans chapter 6, verse 14, and Romans chapter 6, verse 15, where Paul makes clear his belief that the followers of Christ are no longer under the law. But Christ said, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen, will by any means disappear from the law, until everything is accomplished. Therefore, anyone who sets aside one of the least of these commands and teaches others accordingly will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven." So, clearly Paul was teaching a doctrine that was directly opposed to what Christ taught. And in Matthew chapter 5, Christ made it very clear what would become of someone teaching this heresy. These are the main reasons why I find it very difficult to defend Paul's actions or intent, and why every true follower of the Lord should drag their loved ones away from any church that claims a person is saved by faith alone. Give yourselves to God. I'm Archbishop William Scoggins. Are you spreading his teachings or forging your own?
Myself and others here at ABN are exceptionally dedicated to giving everyone the whole truth. We have staff all over the world, and many have already dedicated their lives to being a part of or helping this cause. We rely on the kindness and generosity of others so we can continually deliver the unadulterated truth, and your donations play a crucial role in helping our staff continue their mission. Please consider sending even a small donation to Armageddon Broadcast Network at gmail.com on PayPal. You will find the donation information below in the description field. Remember to love God and love each other. Thank you and God bless.
Governments are quickly falling as massive social unrest, disease, pestilence and financial collapse spreads across the globe. Tensions are at their peak as regional wars are breaking out everywhere, with the imminent threat of global thermonuclear war beginning at any moment as the United States and North Korea threaten mutual annihilation, all while Israel's enemies surround them, promising to end their existence. While from the sky, unprecedented numbers of meteors are skimming past Earth and entering our atmosphere, as never before seen levels of destruction batter the world with apocalyptic weather, fire, droughts, floods, massive earthquakes and simultaneous volcanic eruptions. As a new sun appears in our sky, every major end-time event predicted by Judaism, Christianity and Islam is rapidly unfolding before your eyes. Make no mistake, this is the end. And it's time for you to choose a side. Are you with the enemy who has enslaved and deceived the world, bringing darkness, destruction and death? Or do you stand with the light of the world, the one who brings us light and eternal life, our great and holy King, Lord Rael?